Welcome to Linsay McCulloch, who's going to talk about her summer with Seagal.
Yeah, so Steven Seagal. Can I ask anybody here a Seagal fan? Okay, you would be happy with that. Anybody here seen a Seagal film, even though you're not? Yes, of course, of course. And none of you are fans? Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about the summer that I became slightly obsessed with Steven Seagal. It was a few years back, 5 or 6 years ago. And it all started with this book, which I was given as a present. It's called Yippee-Ki-Yay Moviegoer, and it's by a guy called Vern. Just Vern. I don't know much about Vern, don't know anything about him really, except he is a really good film reviewer, and his book was so funny and very irreverent, and he doesn't really talk about Citizen Kane or Jean-Luc Godard. He's more into Die Hard and Ghostbusters and horror films and action films. And it was a very, very enjoyable book. And I thought, I wonder what else Vern has written, because I'd like to read more of that. And he has written the definitive study on Steven Seagal called Seagalogy, a study of the ass-kicking films of Steven Seagal. Now, Steven Seagal has made something like 60 films, and Vern has literally gone into every one of these in exceptional detail. So I got this book and I was reading it. Again, very enjoyable, very funny. He's a really, really good writer. But at that point, I hadn't seen any Steven Seagal films, so I kind of felt I was missing a little bit of the context. I kind of didn't really know what some of the kind of references were. So I thought, you know what, I'll spend a bit of time watching 1 or 2 or 3 Seagal films, just see where I get to. Well, I watched about 20, and over the course of one summer. So what did I learn? Well, there are kind of common themes that come out throughout all these films. So he's generally a cop, or he's ex-CIA, or he's an ex-Navy SEAL. But unlike a lot of kind of American action films, he's not very patriotic. Anytime he's an ex-CIA guy, he's very pessimistic about American foreign policy, what the CIA has done, and again, that's quite unusual in these films. He's mostly a goodie. He's played the villain once or twice, but mostly he's a goodie. Mostly he's the hero in the films. Martial arts. As many of you will know, I'm sure Steven Seagal is a black belt master of Aikido in real life, and this kind of affinity with martial arts, this propensity for martial arts, is in quite a lot of his films, as it would be. That's kind of what he's got going for him. So he married a Japanese woman, moved to Japan at an early age, ran a dojo. So this is a real skill that he has. There's also a persistent internet rumour that he attended Chichester High School for Boys for one term. So I like to think, I haven't been able to verify that, I mean it's all over the internet, but not really on any kind of site that you would trust. And I like to think that he honed his kind of violence and toughness on the mean streets of West Sussex. So a lot of his films have martial arts. They also have a kind of reverence for Asian philosophy and kind of Asian history, and we'll see that a bit later on as well. Ponytail? Often there's a ponytail. Often there's a bar fight, and during the course of these bar fights, he often breaks somebody's wrist. And he kind of flips it back, like he's flipping the top off a Coke bottle or something, just flips it right back. In fact, he got his start in films as a kind of fight trainer for actors, and so he worked with Sean Connery on the last Bond film that Sean Connery made, which was Never Say Never Again, and he broke Sean Connery's wrist in real life. So you can imagine how that went down. It's not just wrists that get broken, windows often get broken. Somebody's always being thrown through some glass, or into a jukebox, or through a windscreen. And latterly, he has a real penchant for environmental issues, for nature, for animals, And so we're going to watch a trailer of one of his films now, which is On Deadly Ground. Now, this was one he directed. So this is his chance to throw everything in. All his Seagal tricks are in On Deadly Ground, and we'll see that when we see this trailer.
In this land of frozen beauty, where a proud people make their home, Aegis Oil is making a killing.
The people here want to talk about the poisons in their environment.
If Aegis Oil is not online and operational in 13 days, then the oil rights will revert back to the Eskimos, and that is not going to happen.
But there is hope. And now, he's here. Steven Seagal is on deadly ground.
You're an oil man.
When I put out the fires, I stop spills. We are being lied to by some of the most sophisticated people on Earth.
I know we've had our disagreements.
How much money is enough?
I don't need that kind of problem right now.
Get rid of the problem.
You mean mercenaries?
Now this land has a friend.
In you, I've seen a great spirit.
These people have a warrior.
Did you beat up on this little native man?
And this corporation
Find me a body or find me the man.
has a big problem.
And who the hell is this guy?
I'd say his company.
Company?
CIA.
Whatever he is, he's a damn problem.
Steven Seagal.
Time to move out.
Michael Caine.
He'd need a miracle to stop us now.
Just gonna reach out and touch somebody here.
On deadly ground.
Well, I mean, that raises some questions, I think. Are there polar bears in Alaska? I don't know. What the hell is Michael Caine doing in that film, and why is he so terrible? His American accent is sometimes there, sometimes not. And the only thing worse than his accent is the kind of bad dye job on his barnet. I mean, it really is a phoned-in performance from Michael Caine. But I think the biggest question really is, how the hell did Steven Seagal get to direct a film? And the answer is Under Siege, which was his big mainstream film. This was the fifth film that he made. And how many people have seen Under Siege? Yeah, that's the one that most people I think would have seen. So this was his big, as I say, mainstream film. It's often called Die Hard on a Battleship, and that's what it is. There's a battleship that's going to be decommissioned, but it still has nuclear warheads for some reason, I don't know. And in this one, he is an ex-Navy SEAL, but he's punched the wrong superior, and so he's been demoted, and he is the chef on this.
I'd just like to say it's harder to be a chef than a Navy SEAL on a ship, because they're kind of important.
Yeah, and he combines his love of cooking with his love of chopping people in the throat. So you know, when we saw the trailer for On Deadly Ground, I forgot to mention that his love interest in it, who is this kind of tiny little woman, says to him, "You've got such a great spirit," and then immediately we see him whacking somebody in the throat, which is great. But yeah, so Under Siege, he's Casey Ryback, he's the chef, and he's the only man who can stop these terrorists. And he does tend to use rolling pins and knives and cleavers. He makes a bomb out of a microwave. So those chef skills are kind of coming in handy. But it was a massive film. It was made for, I think, $35 million at the time. This is 91, 92, I think. It brought in like 160 million. And so suddenly he's this big player in Hollywood. And what is he going to do with that power? He's going to direct his own film, and he's going to put in everything that is kind of dear to him. So there's a kind of spirituality and philosophy, not this time an Asian philosophy, but the wise and noble indigenous people of Alaska, who he calls Inuits, but you saw that Michael Caine calls them Eskimos. So there's this kind of spiritual thing, there's an eco aspect to it, and it's his chance to really give kind of free rein to his earnestness. People like Bruce Willis or Jason Statham, they take the mickey out of themselves to a certain extent. He is so into his persona and there is no humour there at all, or so he thinks. So we're going to watch another clip now, and this is the bar scene on Deadly Ground. At the point we're coming into it, he's already dispatched kind of 6 or 7 people using those Chichester skills that he learned in early life. At this stage, he's taken on the main boss, who's the bully. So these are oil workers who are in a local bar. They're annoying the locals. They're kind of being cruel to, again, the indigenous people. There's an indigenous man who's been kind of asking for beer or begging for money, and he's the one that's been bullied. And Steven Seagal is not going to stand for that, so he's going to stand up for everybody else. And in this fight, they're playing that game where someone has to kind of slap the other person's hand. If they get to slap somebody's hand, then they get to take a punch. And so, let's watch that.
Mr. Big Balls.
I'm ready.
Okay. You gotta be quick. You gotta be quick.
You know what? Why don't you just take your best shot, pal?
This is the man's man, and I'm the cupcake. One man leaves. Here we go. We're men, right? You're a man, right? Here we go, man. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. What is that, halibut?
Look up on the side, pal.
I think maybe he ate that at Maggie's in Maldives. You're a man, remember? Big balls between your legs? Okay, here we go. All right, come on. What does it take? What does it take to change the essence of a man?
I need time to change.
Time. I do too. I do too.
So what does it take to change the essence of a man? It takes time. That's a very normal response to a fight, of course. And it says time. I cut this off YouTube. I normally buy a cheap DVD online and just kind of clip it that way because it's a bit easier. It's a bit harder on YouTube. So this time isn't in the film, but it is on this YouTube clip. But actually his DVDs are really expensive. I couldn't find a cheap version of this. So I didn't do it. I went for the YouTube one. These Under Siege, this one, and then there was an Under Siege 2, which was like the only sequel that he's done. They were kind of his high points. He continued making films. I've mentioned he's made about 60. But they were kind of becoming less and less commercial. And so shortly after this, his films are going kind of straight to video, straight to DVD. They're not getting a commercial release. They're still doing business enough for him to continue making them. But he also starts to diversify into energy drinks. So there's Steven Seagal's Lightning Bolt, and the flavours are Cherry Charge, which I guess tastes of cherry, and Asian Experience, which I guess tastes of Asia. It has been discontinued, presumably because of something that's in it, but I wasn't able to do my full research tonight and actually taste what Asian Experience tastes like. He also did this. It was a reality TV show called Steven Seagal Lawman, and according to him, he had been a reservist in the Louisiana Sheriff's Department for 20 years. Whether or not it was 20 years, I don't know, but at this point, 2008, 2009, he is a reservist in the Louisiana Sheriff's Department. And so this reality TV show is following him and his cop buddies around as they kind of do drug busts or solve the problems in the town. Now, obviously in his movies, he's the chief, he does the orders, he gives out the orders, he fights murderers, he tracks down people. Obviously, as a reservist in the Sheriff's Department, he's not doing any of this. He's kind of breaking up crowds of teenagers, or he's talking about parking violations. But his cop buddies seem to regard him as a bit of a mascot, because he's very good. His mere presence is enough often to kind of calm down the situation, because they go to somebody's door, they say, you know, da-da-da, we're here on a drug bust, and people are like, but you brought Steven Seagal. And so it's not necessarily that people think, you know, that he's going to fight them or whatever, it's just, what is Steven Seagal from the movies doing in my trailer park, or whatever it is that they are. And at one point somebody says to him, please don't send me to jail, I can't do no jail time, Mr. Stallone. You can imagine how that goes down. So, but this whole kind of period is about him as a good guy. And unfortunately, in real life, maybe not so much. He is a Trump friend of Trump's, he's a Trump supporter. He is a self-confessed friend of Putin's, very pro the Crimea annexation, very pro the Ukraine invasion. He has Russian citizenship, he has a house in Russia, and he is Putin's American ambassador to America for youth and culture, which is probably definitely a real thing. He's also been dogged by accusations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual pestery in general, ever since he started. And he's also not popular on film sets anymore because he takes risks with stunt people. Instead of sticking to the kind of safely pretend version, he'll do the real thing, and he has hurt people, not excluding Sean Connery. So I watched all these films, and I have to say, one, I don't know which ones I've seen and which ones I haven't, because they all have these elements, so they all kind of run into one another. And this was about 5 or 6 years ago that I watched all of these. So for tonight, I thought, you know what, I'll watch a few more, I'll read Seagalogy again. And I thought I'd be coming here tonight going, oh, ha, 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 aren't his films terrible? Ha, ha, what a joke. And actually, 80% of them are, are that. But some are actually really good. So, well, I say really good. They're good. They're good for Seagal. And so these three, I would definitely say Under Siege. If you're in the house on a Saturday night, you got some popcorn, you're like, yeah, I need a little action to kind of just pass my evening, and you can't get hold of actual Die Hard, then Die Hard on a battleship is okay. It's okay for a Saturday night. And Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, which is Die Hard on a train, is also not bad. Out for Justice is one of his very early films, and it's actually a really tight little thriller. Takes place over the course of 24 hours. He's an Italian cop in Brooklyn, so there's lots of, hey, forget about it kind of accent. But he's chasing someone who has killed his friend, and it takes place over this 24 hours. Great action scenes, nice tight little plot, a really bad baddie. Again, that's pretty good. And On Deadly Ground, the one that we have seen, you might hear me saying it's laughably bad, and it's funny, but I'm not sure I'm saying it's laughably bad. It's got a 5-minute speech from him at the end, all about environmental issues, how we shouldn't listen to big business, how alternative fuels are already a thing. This is like early 90s, so he's a bit ahead of his time actually. There's alternative fuels, he does this. There is a whole thing about the kind of nobility and wisdom of the indigenous people, and the elder of this community says at one point, so that film we saw him put out at the start in the trailer, says, in the smoke I see the spirit of a great bear warrior who is going to come and help us. These people are not characters or anything, they're just there to kind of support St. Stephen of Seagal. But at one point Seagal gets wounded, these mercenaries have hunted him, he's been shot, and of course then the indigenous community find him, nurse him back to health with their ancient wisdom of herbs, and the elder of this community says to him, "Oh yeah, you're a bear. We saw the bear coming. You're the bear warrior." Seagal's feeling sorry for himself. He said, "I'm not a bear. I'm not a bear. I'm a mouse, and I'm being hunted by a hawk." And the elder says to him, "That's exactly what a bear would say." So it's crazy and it's bonkers, but there is something to it. And so I would say, you know, Saturday night, watch Under Siege or Out for Justice. New Year's Day, when you've got half a bottle of Baileys left, maybe some chocolate, you're lying on the sofa, watch On Deadly Ground. Doesn't matter if you have a nap, because the explosions will wake you up. I feel I'd be remiss in not telling you where you can read some more of what Vern has written. His books are great, I think. He also has a website. He's not a full-time writer anymore, but he updates his website every couple of days with a new review. So go to outlaw.vern if you want to read more of him. If you want to hear more of me, I do a podcast with my podcast partner called What's Wrong With This Picture, and we look at weird movies and why we love them so much. I have tried several times to get him to do On Deadly Ground. He just will not budge, my podcast partner. He just does not want to do it. But we know what it takes to change the essence of a man. It just takes time. So I'll keep working on him. And if that doesn't work, I'll just break his wrist. Thanks very much.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Linsay.